Next up, we were very lucky to get some time to chat to an industry stalwart, namely Charles Cecil, CEO of Broken Sword creators Revolution Software.
That is a little bit like asking a parent which their favorite child is. So I was very proud of the first Broken Sword game. It went way over budget and took much longer than it should have done. But I'm also very proud of Broken Sword 5 as well. Broken Sword 1 was interesting because the magazines just gave it such great reviews. We were easily in the 90s. And indeed, when we republished the game for iPhone, it got a Metacritic average review score of 91%. Broken Sword 5 has been such a pleasure because we've been able to work with our community. We kickstarted the game back in 2012. And we raised, and up until that point, we really didn't know who our community was. We didn't know who the fans were. Because when games went through retail, a publisher would commission a game, and they would commission a game if they had confidence that when it was finished, a retailer would have confidence to stock it, because ultimately gamers would buy it. So we were working with people who kind of only had a relationship with the retailers, and that's one of the reasons why publishers were so conservative in what they commissioned, and why in many ways innovation totally dropped. What's great now is you have the ability through digital distribution to have an infinite storefront. So on iOS there are, well over 1 million apps available. That brings its own problems of discoverability, but we have this wonderful position where we're actually able to communicate directly with our audience, with our fans, with our community, ask them what they like, and they can feed back, and genuinely we value what they have to say. And it means that actually everybody wins, because we get fantastic feedback, and our fans feel quite rightly that they're part of the development process. You could say that digital distribution is actually the big changer, because from that free-to-play has come. From that you've had the App Store, but all of these things, none of these things were possible until you had ubiquitous broadband. And I mean, the wonderful thing about technology is when ubiquitous broadband came along, and so many mobiles, nobody could have imagined that actually games were going to flourish in that way. Steve Jobs certainly didn't. He had no confidence in games. So the really big change, and certainly from a developer like Revolution, the ability to sell directly has totally changed the business model, and it allows us to directly communicate with our fans. So that's at the root of it. Free to play, of course, dominates the revenues. Personally, I prefer to play a game, to buy a game and then just play it, and I know where I stand. But some people love free to play, and that's absolutely fine. But our games are sold at a premium. We sell them, and we appeal to our fans and say, adventure games are expensive to write. We understand that you could probably pirate it if you wanted to, but be part of our community, support us through buying the game, and we'll write more games. The hardest part of game development is undoubtedly coming up with the ideas, particularly now, because there are so many great games out there. So you can't just be derivative. Well, you can. In the free-to-play area, you can be as derivative. Everybody is derivative. But in the premium area, you have to have new ideas. And it's actually really hard work, because you come up with this great idea, and in your mind it works so well, and it's a great story, great characters. And in many ways, writing video games is a dimension harder than writing a linear script, because not only do you need all the things a linear script need, but you need it to work from a gameplay perspective as well. And that's really hard work. And the problem is, as a game designer, there are always other things you can do. So emails will come through, and this and that and the other, and you go, I'll get it. And then you just have to force yourself. And it's wonderful designing games, but it's also really, really hard work. Because of course, if you come up with a great innovative game, then the rest follows. The distribution follows, the ability to communicate with the audience, the interest from the press, all of those things follow from basically the innovation of a new idea. For us, 6 years ago, Revolution was virtually bankrupt. We'd been losing money on our games, which publishers made a lot of money on. There was a system whereby you recouped, but against your recoupment, everything was charged. And we sat down and we said, we don't know where to go from here. And then everything changed in 2007 with the launch of iPhone, because we had the ability to then self-publish, which we did, and we earned some revenues, and we pulled ourselves from a very, very weak position into actually quite a strong position. And from that strong position, having sold, first of all, Beneath the Steel Sky, then Broken Sword 1, then Broken Sword 2, these games went to number 1. They did really, really well. And from that, we decided that we could then have the confidence to start a new Broken Sword. Now, digital distribution is all very well, but clearly you have to fund it. And it's all, we could turn around and we could say publishers are rubbish and all this sort of stuff. But publishers funded it, and publishers took the risk. So we had to find a way of funding the game and then effectively take the risk. And that's why Kickstarter was so fantastic, because at that crucial time, the high-risk period, backers were prepared to put their own money in. But I feel very passionately that as a developer, it is our responsibility to come up with at least a prototype with our own money, so that when we're going out and looking to backers, we're saying, this is the gameplay, we've proved it, if this is what you want, then please support us. Whereas this idea of saying, we want to write a game with you, and it might be rubbish, it might go nowhere, and then we cancel it because it's not going anywhere, and well, it was your fault because is just wrong. And that's not my view at all. I think we really ought to come up with a prototype of some which actually proves the gameplay, so that people know what they're actually buying into. If you like really visceral, fast-moving games, then that's great. If you want to sit back and think about the game and be pulled into a mystery, a murder mystery, that requires you to logically deduce what happens, and in that, of course, the narrative and the background spirals with conspiracy. Our backgrounds that we use in terms from a historical perspective are as authentic as, they are totally authentic. And we go to wonderful locations around the world. We have hand-drawn backgrounds. It feels like an interactive cartoon. And if that's what you like, then really you should try Bartholomews Fluch, because the reviews are 90% plus. It gets great scores. People love it if you're that type of gamer. But if you don't like slower games, if you don't like thinking, if you want Twitch gameplay, then it's probably not the game for you.